Good afternoon. This is Michelle Padilla, the host of the Awareness Show, and I have Ben Turner from Department Conservation, and we're going to be talking about what he does for fun and what he does as his role. Well, not his role, but just to get to know him a little bit better. But first, I wanted to let the listeners know that my dad has recently passed this past March, so he was the one supporter that I had. So my dad is the one that told me to do the podcast. So we're going to be dedicating the show to him, and we're going to be doing some more stuff for him in the future. We're going to have a celebration of life for my dad. So the funeral service is going to be Tuesday. And so, Ben, a little bit about my background. I started doing podcasting 12 years ago. So we started doing it at KDHR in a dungeon. We call it dungeon because we had no internet service at the time. So we were just barely starting out. So my dad would actually tell me to text and talk about content. I had nothing to contact. So as I got better at podcasting, I learned how to get my resources that I needed from people with disability and what they needed to do. And so it grew, and we had celebrities on the show. We had Marion Ross from Happy Days on the show. We've had Loretta Swift from MASH. We had the late Don Wells, and the list goes on and on. And today we want to know a little bit about you and how do you feel. So Ben, take it away.
Well, thanks, Michelle. Good morning. Again, sorry about the passing of your father. We talked about it a little bit in the office, and glad to hear there's going to be a celebration of life next week. So I hope you're coping with that as well as can be reasonably expected. A little bit about myself. I'm the chief of policy and planning for the Department of Conservation. My general role here is pretty vague, but it's about implementation of programs to ensure the accountability of oil and gas operators, development and implementation of policy and regulations, and identification of opportunities for regulatory program improvements. And I also work on policy initiatives in the department's energy transition, carbon management, and conservation programs across all the department's divisions. So I work with the everybody in the department pretty much, CGS, Division of Land Resource Protection, the California Geologic Energy Management Division, and the Division of Mine Reclamation. And I also work with folks in the Natural Resources Agency and the Governor's Office on a weekly basis.
So
So
my question is, did you always know you wanted to do policy, or did you always wanted to do something else?
well, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, but unfortunately, I don't have the skills, talent, size, or strength to do such a thing. So that didn't pan out. But I know, seriously, I didn't want to. I never really knew what I was going to do. I went to community college and I kind of studied uh, geography and history and biology and dendrology and geology, and I kind of was interested in just about everything. Then because I was interested in just about everything, when I transferred to UCSB, in the University of California, Santa Barbara, I majored in geography because with geography, you can study anything that happens on Earth. So, that's pretty wide and broad, and it can be human or physical science. So I did that, and then I continued to study like a broad array of topics, and then I didn't really want to get a real job, so I was doing geographic information systems work, kind of part-time. I did consulting for a bus company and for the Nature Conservancy and for the Cheadle Center for Biological Diversity and for the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis, and kind of helped them answer questions and how to use geographic information systems in their work and in their scientific endeavors. And then I went and got a master's degree in geography as well. And as I was wrapping that up, I a guy named Pedro Nava, who was an assembly member from Santa Barbara, was looking for a person to come work up here in Sacramento in their capital office. So I applied for that position and got it, and I've been doing policy work ever since. And working in the legislature is pretty good because you study, again, you continue to study and work on everything. You work on labor policy, health policy, oil and gas, and actually with him is how I ended up getting into oil and gas and Department of Conservation issues, because there's a company in Santa Barbara County called Greca Energy that kept having oil spills. They just could not help themselves. They were just terrible oil and gas operators, and they continued to have oil spills. And so I worked on a bill, AB 1960, with people here at the Department of Conservation, many of whom are gone, but Justin Turner, our Assistant Chief Counsel, was involved in drafting that legislation. And then I kind of developed more and more of an interest in energy policy, and eventually worked for a couple different senators and assembly members before I was recruited to joined the Brown administration as the Assistant Director for Legislative and Regulatory Affairs here at the Department of Conservation, which is now Kate Litsky's job.
Well, it's funny to talk about baseball because
Mm-hmm.
my family
Yeah.
are the huge Dodger fans.
Uh-huh.
And one of the reasons why I became a podcaster was Vince Scully, because as you know, he would tell a baseball story like there's no tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, believe it or not, I know you follow baseball. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you ever heard of a pitcher, Ryan Dempster.
Yeah.
He has a daughter who has a syndrome that I have. It's called 22q11. And so I got to interview him on my podcast. So he has a foundation called 22Q Family Foundation. And he is one of the very first interviewers I ever got to interview about baseball. So we talk about that. And then we talked about how, how 22Q is getting so much recognized. It wasn't that before, but now it's getting more recognized. So baseball, and I love baseball, and I've been wanting to ask Justin if he's related to Justin Turner from the Dodgers, but I don't want to do that. You know what
Nope.
I mean? And then
Yeah.
I found out that we had a Don Drysdale. You
Yep.
know, he's
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, nah, I don't want to ask that question. So my dad was always going, did you ask him? Did you ask him? No, 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 no.
Nah.
So, but
I
we
can tell
love the
you Justin
Dodgers,
is
and
is
yeah.
not related to Justin Turner. Um, and Don Drysdale is not related to Don Drysdale.
But
But Don had when he was here in the office, he does have some pretty good Don Drysdale memorabilia. But Don Drysdale is a Giants fan, not
oh,
a Dodgers fan. Sorry.
oh. That's okay. It's okay. Our neighbors are Giants fan, and so when the Dodgers lost badly this past week, my neighbor got the broom and pretend to sweep.
Yep. That's funny. Yeah,
So,
the Giants are doing awesome. They are gonna go for 10 in a row starting tonight. I think if they win, they'll have 10 wins in a row.
so what baseball team do you like?
I'm an A's fan, so I will never forgive the Dodgers for 1988 when
Oh man, that was a
Orel
good one. I'm sorry.
Hershiser and Kurt Gibson and Tim Belcher and Mike Scioscia and Mickey Hatcher and all those guys beat the A's in 5 games.
I
I'll
was
never forget Game 1 when Jose Canseco hit a grand slam, which was the
oh
first grand slam
yeah.
of his career, and then Dennis Eckersley at the end of the game was pitching to Kurt Gibson, and it's one of the greatest baseball moments in history. It
Of
took me like
course.
15, 20 years to appreciate that.
I was,
But
believe it or not, I think I was 10 years old and I could still watch a play over and over. That would be one of my favorite all times. My mom
yeah.
had a t-shirt, 1988 World Series Dodgers. So,
Hmm.
she was from Ohio and she was a Cincinnati Red Sox fan. And then when she came
Hmm.
out here, that's when became a Dodger fan. And so talking about World Series 1988, Kurt Gibson or Horsinger. Oh man, I actually got to be part of during COVID. They had Zoom parties. The Dodgers had Zoom parties, and I
Mm-hmm.
was actually got to be a part of that. So it was actually fun, and we had a tour of the Dodger Stadium, and that was kind of fun. We got to sit in the little
Yeah.
booth and stuff like that. And so I'm sorry, we're huge Dodger fans, and so my mom always texting me, "There's a game at 7 o'clock. You've got to get home to watch the game. You got to get home to watch the game." So
Mm-hmm.
she's been watching it ever since. And like you said, my favorite. What do you think? Okay, let me ask you about this. What do you think about Steve Garvey running for? I think it's Congress or Senate.
He's running for United States Senate. I just look at his I know who I'm voting for United States Senate, like and it's not going to be him for sure. So like there's a lot of people and it has nothing to do with him being a Dodger. It has to do with more with his politics. I'm a Democrat, and I will be supporting the Democratic nominee. And there's like Katie Porter's running, Adam Schiff is running, and probably a number of other people. But I will be voting for one of probably Katie Porter or Adam
Uh,
Schiff, depending on who ends up there.
See, for me, I make sure that I look for people what they can give out for resources and who
Mm-hmm.
is going to help the people with disability in the community. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I basically look out for. Nothing to do with
Mm-hmm.
politics, but who has better resources for people like us who have disabilities. And there are people out there who have a hard time actually going to vote the voting polls because they're disabled or they
Mm-hmm.
can't write the votes. So
Mm-hmm.
like I said, one of the main reasons why we started the awareness show is making sure that they know what the resources are available to them, how to get jobs, how to get internships, and how to work for state jobs. Most people don't know that, but the Heart Rehab has a lot of good resources available to them. And people with disability can get a job coach. They can start getting their internship from DUR. A lot of people, or get the LEAP program. So, and then a couple of students don't know about internships. So, Ben, when you were working in policy, let me ask you, were there a lot of internships programs at the time for you?
There were, and we always had every summer we had one or two interns in the legislature. There's kind of like a famous uh, intern. He actually works he has Down syndrome, and he works at the Capitol. I don't actually know if he still works there with the Capitol being shut down for construction, but he delivered mail, and he worked there for years. And let me see, I can't remember his name. I bet I could find it though real quick. But yeah, there was internships for mostly college students or people who just got out of college. But there was at least um, some folks who were there who worked who had disabilities who were doing internships.
So the question is it hard for people who are getting out of college or in college to get internships? Because some students, they don't know where to look for. So do you have any advice for them on how to get an internship?
Yeah. Let's see here. Um, well, I would start looking, well before you need it. And So like if you need an internship in the summer, you should start early. Start in the winter time and start looking for opportunities. Talk to the counselors and career services folks at your school because they have a lot of connections. Um, I would say be persistent and dogged in your pursuit of internships. Um, sometimes like sometimes people just send emails and just leave it to an email or just submit an application online. And I think younger folks do that a lot more these days. But like picking up the phone or visiting people tends to have like a huge impact. compared to just sending in an email or submitting information or an application online. So working to have personal contact or connection with somebody.
Yep.
Seek out mentors who have large professional networks. I serve on the external advisory board of for the UC Davis Environmental Policy and Management Program, and I help those students in that program find internships because having worked in the Capitol for several years and in state government for several years at the Department of Conservation and the California Public Utilities Commission and the legislature and Resources Agency, I've met numerous people, and so I can connect them with people. And then if those people don't have opportunities, they probably know somebody who does. So reach out to folks who work in the field and see if they can help you out.
So it's basically like you know somebody, you know somebody, you know somebody to get your foot into the door, basically.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is typically how people find jobs. It's like you hardly ever find a job by just shooting in the dark. Like it just usually it's somebody or know somebody who knows somebody. So just like networking and building relationships and taking advantage of those relationships. I mean, and doing a good job and making sure you have a good reputation so that people want to go to bat for you um, is the best way
One
to
of my
go.
former internships, and I love him. Well, the Assembly member Mike Gibson. I don't know if you know who he is.
I do, yeah.
He's my former boss, and I've been
Hmm.
before I moved up here, I was an internship for him. That was my
Cool.
last internship, and so I got to learn, the good, the bad outtakes of, you know, the government side of policies and not so nice. People can be mean sometimes, and
Yeah.
but I learned that he's a people person, and believe it or
Oh,
not,
absolutely.
I did not know that he was going to be running for mayor of Carson at one point. So that was kind of new. And he's always given back to his community, whether it's Carson, Long Beach, Compton. And so I was grateful for working there. That was my last internship. But my first internship, believe it or not, I was actually a peer educator counselor, and I was actually passing out condoms because we're talking about health, sex 101 and all that stuff on college.
Hmm.
And I was just passing them out. I gave some to my aunts for Christmas, and they had them all. They were making balloons out of them. So, and then see what they wanted me to do, Ben. They wanted me to go to Skid Row and do my
Hmm.
internship at night.
Hmm.
And I'm like, no, I take the bus. I'm disabled, and I'm not going by myself.
Hmm.
I Go ahead.
The Mr. Assemblymember Gibson was suggesting that be an activity during your
No, this is one of
internship.
my first internship.
Ah,
Yes.
hmm.
And I said no, I couldn't do it because I take the bus going home, and I don't feel safe going to Skid Row by myself.
Yeah.
So I had to fight to get internships on campus. And then I met Mike Gibson at one of the community events. And so we started talking. He says, we got an internship. Would you like to come in and help us out? So I was able to help him out. And so that's how, you know, I met him at the Special Olympics when they had it in
Uh-huh.
Los Angeles. So that was a lot of
Did
fun.
did you compete in the Special Olympics?
No, actually, I interviewed the athletes in Special
Oh,
Olympics.
cool. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had one of my friends from Australia. His son has 22q11, and he was doing the equestrian. So
Uh-huh.
I think he ended up getting the silver medal.
Wow. That's
So
pretty cool.
yeah, so that was kind of fun. So I interviewed a couple people from different countries. Some of them had no legs and they were running on
Hmm.
I'm like, wow. And the ground was really hot that day. It was like maybe 90-degree weather or something like that.
Wow.
So it's a lot of fun. And like I said, you never know who you're gonna meet when you're doing podcasting and how it's gonna go. You know, um, so if you notice my logo back there, my
Hmm.
graphic designer Maxie did it, and it has the X. that's a chromosome. So it's a
Ah.
22q chromosome, and we wanted a future 22q. So a lot of people don't know what 22q is. It's the second most common to Down syndrome. So, and it has over 200 symptoms. You got congenital heart defect, learning disabilities, teeth issues. The list goes on and on and on. And so, like I said, my dad says stick to what you know. Start talk about resources and disabilities and cancers and other stuff and heart diseases. And so it, like I said, it grew because of my dad. So that's how we came up with the logo. And so
Mm-hmm.
every year we put out lights. So for I'm sorry, I don't answer that. For like lights, we have veterans. We have it's a blue green light. So to show support for green light, and then we have blue light for 22Q, and then we have red light for 22Q for our zoo event. So we show our support for the veterans, for people with diabetes, for cancer, because in our family we have a lot of history and health history. And then I don't know if you are aware about Camp Lejeune. Have you heard of?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
so back in 1950s, my grandfather was stationed at Camp Lejeune, and they had some type of chemical called benzene, and so it causes him to have health issues.
Mm.
So my mom thinks that my syndrome might be environmental health issue because of the water that they were drinking back then. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know all this stuff was happening. So so we wanted to get more familiar about it. And then, like, I meet people, we talk about different syndromes and all that stuff. There are over 7,000 different diseases out there. And so, we wanted to know more about each syndromes and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of cool. And so, like I said, the awareness show goes all over. We are international. We go to England, we go to France, we go to Ireland, Mexico, Japan, and all of our supporters, they all listen. So um, we have a lot of fun on our show. We have a team of specialists, and right now they're taking a break, but one of our graphic designers is going to Comic Con. She has her table first set up for San Diego Comic Con this year. So she's excited about that, and she's a little shy. So, like I said, we've been doing podcasting now for 12 years, and I hope to continue with podcasting. So, Ben, on your side, when you're not doing policy work, what do you do for fun?
I like to go backpacking. I have two sons who are 12 and 10, and my wife. We go backpacking in the Desolation Wilderness and in the Sierra Nevada and in the Trinity Alps. So we've done that, and that's like a really fun activity. I coach baseball for my both my children. I did like I was lucky last year. Both my kids were on the same team. This past year they were on different teams, so I just coached my older son's team. We were the Mets in the Land Park Little League, and then I also coach basketball. I'm coaching both my children are on the same basketball team again, and we're going to play on Saturday at 4:45 at the YMCA. Um, Let's see. I coach soccer too. I
Nice.
I play basketball. This morning I played basketball with our assistant chief counsel Justin Turner over there at Roosevelt Park, and that was I also play with a group of people on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. Um, let's see. That's the main thing. I like to I like to do physical activity and we got a canoe. I go mountain biking. Like our former assistant director for the Division of Mine Reclamation, Pat Perez, who is now retired. He got me during the pandemic. I bought a mountain bike, and he and I have gone mountain biking several times in Marin County and Sacramento and Sacramento area, and up in the Sierra too.
Oh, wow.
So.
So do
Mhm.
you ever have yourself like downtime where you just want to just take a break and say have a sleep night to yourself and not get out of bed?
Yeah, mostly. the times I've spent the most time just laying around is usually because I'm injured. I injured my neck and my back a while ago, and that was like when I watched probably more TV than I've ever watched before. I watched the season 1 and 2 of Ted Lasso when I had a back injury. Then I and then when I had COVID, I got COVID last November or December. I also just hung out and watched a lot of sports. I watched the NBA, a lot of NBA games. I watched Major League Soccer. Like that kind of thing.
Nice. Now let me
Hmm.
ask you, did you ever watch the movie Hot Flaming Cheetos yet? Have you seen
I
that
have
one yet?
not
You gotta see
seen
it.
it.
It's actually pretty good. It's funny.
Yeah, good. That's an interesting story. There's it's like not actually true how that happened at all.
No. Okay.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. Like there's a series in the LA Times about it. Like the whole story of that guy making up hot flaming Cheetos is entirely fabricated. He worked. The guy did work at Frito Lay, and he was a janitor at one point at Frito Lay. But the hot flaming Cheetos came from market research and testing in Texas and Illinois.
Ah,
And It was just a totally made up story that he did it, and he made a book about it, and he went on a speaking tour. And when they started to make that movie and got the deal, the Los Angeles Times did a investigation on it, and they started out just to do a piece about the guy, like just like, oh, cool, interesting story. And then they interviewed people and found out that it wasn't true at all. And then they contacted um, the producer of the movie and the director of the movie, Eva Longoria, about it, and has pointed out to her that it wasn't true. But she found the story anyway, even though it wasn't going to be true, a compelling and interesting story, and it would still be an entertaining movie. So she pursued making it anyway.
well, it actually is pretty funny though. I kind of like it though. So, you know,
Hmm.
and then recently we're talking about Titanic. You know what's going on with Titanic?
Yeah.
A lot of cursed bad stuff going on, and
Hmm.
they said it to 111 years later this happened. So it's kind of like I'm thinking
Yeah,
they're going to be a movie about this soon. So
that
I
could
wouldn't
be.
I wouldn't
It
be
is.
surprised. So
Yeah, it's hard to imagine what that must have been like to be in that little capsule. That doesn't sound fun at all. Like, so
mm-mm.
they were paying $250,000 each to get in that capsule and cruise around underwater, and it was an uncertified vehicle that apparently imploded. Um, and So it would have been better if they had, good safety precautions. But I wouldn't even want to do that anyway. Would you want to do that? Go on like a little tiny submarine and cruise around deep in the ocean? No way,
Nope,
right?
nope, 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 nope.
Yeah.
My mom, she actually she worked for Raytheon at the time,
Hmm.
and she got to go on the Trident sub.
Oh, wow.
So, but she didn't go underwater. It was just up top. So
Uh-huh.
she's fine with that. But going underwater, she said she couldn't do that. So,
Yeah, no way, man.
and I'm like you. I don't want to go underwater if I don't have to. So,
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
have a hard time breathing with my nose, and like I said, I've been working with DLC now for a year, and I'm very grateful because Department Rehab got me this job. And so I'm meeting a lot of people like you, Clayton, Melanie, Carolyn, Kaylee, Justin. And so I'm learning as I go along the different types of resources that you guys offer. And I didn't know anything about abandoned mines or
Mm-hmm.
oil or energy before I came in here. So
Mm-hmm.
I started doing my research the day before my interview, and I'm like, oh, so that's what you guys do. Okay, that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So I learn as I go. So like I said, it's been interesting, and you can see all kinds of stuff happening over there at the Capitol. A lot of stuff happens, and so basically, we want to make DLC more accessible, I guess, more resources for people out there because they don't know what Department Conservation is. And then when I started telling them, they're like, "Oh, so that's what they are. That makes sense
Mm-hmm.
now." Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people didn't understand what they are, and so when I don't have any guests on the show, I play music. I create playlists for people that they want to hear, like 90s or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So let me tell you a story. I got 10 minutes. I was reading an article yesterday, and one of the TikTokers, they said that the 90s is now vintage
Uh-huh.
because apparently we're they found a Versace dress, and she goes, "Oh, look, it's totally vintage. Oh, wait, it's the 90s. That's why it's vintage." Oh, like really? It's vintage. So I don't know. I mean, the world is changing so rapidly and happening so fast. Pop culture, they're changing pop culture like crazy. And we just want to make sure you guys are up to date of the resources and disability awarenesses. It's Pride Month here at Department of Conservation. And so, we want you guys just have fun, and weather's gonna be changing like crazy in the next few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
They said they're gonna have cooler summers. Is that correct, Ben? Is it
You
cooler
know,
su
I don't know. We've been having some interesting weather. It got hot for a bit, and then it cooled down. I think the most interesting thing this going to happen this year is and this like over the winter and fall or the fall and winter is going to be we're going to have another El Nino, so we're going to get a lot of rainfall, like probably like just like 1995. Remember that when there
Oh,
was
yes. Yeah.
tons of rain and snow. Um, but yeah, it's been cooler than usual up here in Sacramento.
Now, were you here when we had the earthquake a couple weeks ago up here in DOC?
You know, I didn't feel it. The last time I felt an earthquake was in, I think it was last fall. I was sitting in my home office and I was talking to people on the phone who are in San Francisco and people who are in, or it was like a Zoom call for a regular work meeting, and in San Francisco and Sacramento they felt it, but I didn't
Well,
feel the one more recently.
when you felt me and Nate, we were up here on the 19th floor, and it was like rolling. And it was like, oh wow.
Wow.
I was like, and I was talking to my friend from LA, and I said, "Hey, we just had an earthquake."
Hmm.
I didn't have time to go underneath the table. He went through the door, no problem,
Uh-huh.
but it was just really quick and like nothing. So I'm like, oh, I felt like I was back home because LA always has earthquakes.
Yeah.
I remember the Northridge earthquake. That was pretty bad. So
Yeah.
I
That was
was,
quite a thing. Yeah, then that freeway collapse. Do you remember that police car was driving on the freeway, and I don't know what he thought, if he could go, he thought he'd just like hop down or something,
yeah,
but he just went
yeah.
and got stuck.
My dresser fell on me,
Oh, wow.
and my mom had to pull me. I was crying for help. My mom had to pull me out, and my dad
Hmm.
was in the shower getting ready for work. So,
Wow.
and then the next week they actually told us to stay home because we went to the LA Unified School District. So
Uh-huh.
they told us to stay home because we had no power. So,
Oh, wow.
and that was the same year that was the riots, the LA
Uh,
King riots. We had the Northridge earthquake, and then we had the OJ Simpson truck going by. So we had a lot of stuff going on back in the 90s. That was like,
yeah, it's quite a time. The California Geological Survey produces like a book after every earthquake, and they did one for Northridge. They it was like a summary of the aftermath and how long it took to recover and get back to business, and it was actually pretty surprising for how much damage occurred, and the magnitude of the earthquake, how quickly and resilient the city of Los Angeles and LA County was. There was like there's a large gas storage facility at the Aliso Canyon gas storage facility, and there was two wells there that were sheared, and it was up and running within 48 hours again, still providing gas to people in the community, of power people's um, water heaters and everything. It was a yeah, quite just amazing how fast things got put back together and now we're up and running.
well, Ben, our time is almost up. And do you want to have a final note for our listeners out there today?
Uh, just thanks for the opportunity to speak with you, and keep up the good work on your really great and entertaining show.
Thank you, guys. This is the Awareness Show, and we are coming back. I'm trying to make my slowly progress back So I've been dealing with a lot of family issues, and I know my dad didn't want me to give up the podcast, so we're keeping it up. So we're thinking of my dad, and so this weekend, stay cool, stay dry. Next week, it's the 4th of July week coming up. Take care of your dogs and cats, make sure they're okay, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Have a good day, and I'm out.
All
Have a good
right.
one,
See you,
bud.
Michelle. Bye.
Bye.